If you have been watching the 2026 NASCAR Cup Series season closely, you have probably sensed that something is shifting inside the garage. Not in a loud or obvious way, but in that quieter, harder to define way that tends to mean more in the long run. There's a feeling among people who follow this sport closely that something unexpected is developing, and it is developing faster than almost anyone predicted. Two separate stories are unfolding right now in the Cup Series, and while each one is interesting on its own, putting them together reveals something much bigger about what the rest of this season might actually look like. One of those stories involves a moment at Phoenix Raceway, where a driver's day appeared to be completely finished. There was smoke, there was a spin, and everyone watching assumed that was it. But somehow it was not. The other story goes back a few weeks to Atlanta Motor Speedway, where the same driver quietly delivered a result that made people inside the garage stop and reconsider what they thought they knew. Together, these two moments are telling a story about a driver who is learning NASCAR faster than anyone expected, and the implications of that could be significant as the season develops. Before we get into it, if you are a true NASCAR fan who loves being in the middle of conversations like this one every single week, please hit the like button and subscribe to NASCAR Nation Report right now. This channel is brand new, and the goal right now is to reach 1,000 real NASCAR fans who genuinely love this sport. We want to build something honest here, a place where the real stories get told properly. If that sounds like your kind of channel, subscribe and come along for the ride. Now, let's get into what is actually happening. The driver at the center of both of these stories is Shane Van Gisbergen, who races the number 97 Chevrolet for Trackhouse Racing. If you have followed NASCAR over the past couple of seasons, you already know the basic outline of his story. He came into the Cup Series carrying a massive reputation built almost entirely on road courses. His performances on those tracks were extraordinary, the kind that made people who had never paid attention to NASCAR suddenly start paying attention. But the conversation around him always carried a significant asterisk, because NASCAR is not primarily a road course series. The majority of the schedule is made up of oval tracks, and the question that followed Van Gisbergen from the moment he arrived in the Cup Series was simple and pointed. Can he actually compete on ovals? 4 races into the 2026 season, that question is starting to get an answer that not many people expected this quickly. Van Gisbergen sits 5th in the championship standings. Let that land for a moment. 5th in points after 4 races, competing week in and week out against drivers who have spent their entire careers learning the specific demands of NASCAR oval racing. Even people who cover this sport professionally and follow the garage closely have admitted they did not see this coming so soon. Jeff Gluck, a respected NASCAR journalist who appears on the podcast The Teardown alongside Jordan Bianchi, addressed this directly when the two were talking through the early surprises of the 2026 season. Gluck said that when you look at the positive surprises so far this year, Van Gisbergen has to be at the top of the list. He said he genuinely could not believe the standings after 4 races. 5th in points is not where most people would have placed their money on SVG being this early in the season. And what makes that standing even more meaningful is the context around how he got there, particularly what happened at Phoenix Raceway. During the Phoenix race, Van Gisbergen spun out. From where Gluck was sitting in the press box, the moment the smoke appeared and the car went sideways, he immediately assumed that was the end of SVG's day. He said he looked down at the track, recognized it was Van Gisbergen, and thought that was not a good situation for him. Part of the reason that reaction was so automatic is because Van Gisbergen still operates under a level of scrutiny that most established Cup Series drivers do not face. There are people on social media and in the broader conversation around NASCAR who are always ready to point to a difficult moment on an oval and use it as evidence that he cannot truly compete in those situations. So when the spin happened, Gluck's assumption was that the critics were about to have plenty of material to work with. But then something happened that genuinely surprised the people watching. Instead of fading through the field and salvaging whatever points he could from a damaged day, Van Gisbergen fought his way back through the running order and finished 11th. Gluck admitted afterward that he still does not fully understand how it happened. He said that at one point during the late stages of the race, he looked up at the scoring pylon and suddenly Van Gisbergen was significantly further forward than he had any reason to be. His best guess was that the Trackhouse racing team made a smart tire call during one of the late restarts, possibly taking just 2 tires while others took 4, which would have given them track position to work with. Whatever the specific strategy was, the result was a top 15 finish from a driver who had spun out and appeared to be done. Jordan Bianchi added another dimension to the conversation that is worth paying close attention to. He said that when you talk to other drivers in the garage, the ones who compete against Van Gisbergen every week, they are genuinely impressed by what they are seeing from him. That observation carries real weight. These are not casual observers or fans watching from the grandstands. These are professional racing drivers who understand at a deep level exactly how difficult it is to move from another form of motorsport into the NASCAR Cup Series and compete at a meaningful level on oval tracks. The fact that those drivers are expressing genuine respect for what Van Gisbergen is doing tells you something important about the quality of his development. Bianchi's point was that the skills Van Gisbergen built over his career, the car control, the racecraft, the competitive instincts, are transferable. They translate, but only if the driver is actually willing to do the hard work of learning a completely different set of demands. And based on what the people inside the garage are observing, that is exactly what Van Gisbergen is doing. He is working, he is learning, he is adapting to each situation. And most importantly, he is getting better with every race he completes. Both Gluck and Bianchi were careful to point out that the real tests are still ahead. The schedule coming up includes tracks like Las Vegas Motor Speedway and Darlington Raceway, and those are the kinds of places that will provide much more demanding information about where Van Gisbergen's oval development actually stands. A top 11 finish at Phoenix after a spin is impressive, but Las Vegas and Darlington are different challenges entirely, and what happens there will tell a more complete story about whether this early momentum is built on something solid, or whether it represents the high watermark before the harder tracks expose limitations that are still there. But here's where the second story becomes so important because it provides context that makes the Phoenix recovery feel less like a single good moment and more like part of a genuine trend. Earlier in the 2026 season at Atlanta Motor Speedway, Van Gisbergen scored a 6th-place finish. That result stands as the best oval finish of his NASCAR Cup Series career, and the circumstances surrounding it make it even more significant than the number alone suggests. The Atlanta race was not a clean run for Van Gisbergen. He actually spun twice during the event. 2 separate spins on a superspeedway-style track, and he still came home in 6th place. That combination of adversity and result tells you something meaningful about how his approach to oval racing has evolved. A driver who is still a complete beginner on ovals does not recover from 2 spins and finish 6th. A driver who is developing real understanding of how these races work, how to manage the car, how to read the situations around him and respond correctly, can do exactly that. Van Gisbergen himself has been pretty open about what his learning process looks like from the inside. He has talked about treating every race as an opportunity to build what he calls a notebook. By that, he means collecting information, understanding what the car needs at different points in a run, figuring out what strategies work on different oval layouts, and gradually building a mental library of experience that he can draw on as the season continues. He knows he is still learning. He has said clearly that oval racing involves a level of intricate detail, things like how the air moves around cars in close proximity, how drafting works in NASCAR packs, when to make moves and when to be patient, that takes time and repetition to fully absorb. He is not pretending to have it all figured out, he's just doing the work to figure it out. The progress was actually already showing before this season started. At the end of the 2025 season, Van Gisbergen scored a 10th place finish at Kansas Speedway. At the time, that was considered a notable step forward in his oval development. Now, just a few months later, the 6th place at Atlanta has moved the benchmark significantly higher. The direction of that progress is what matters most. His stated goal for the 2026 season is consistency on ovals. He wants to be a driver who regularly challenges for top 10 finishes on those tracks, not just occasionally delivering a standout result, but building a pattern of strong performances that accumulate into meaningful championship points. If he can achieve that, the implications for his season are significant. NASCAR's playoff format rewards consistency throughout the regular season, and a driver who can be genuinely competitive on road courses and increasingly competitive on ovals becomes a very different kind of championship factor than a road course specialist who collects points when the schedule suits him and goes backwards when it does not. Right now, after 4 races, Van Gisbergen is doing exactly what that kind of championship contender needs to do. He is banking points. He is maintaining his position in the standings. He is building confidence race by race, and he is earning the respect of the people in the garage who know this sport best. That combination of things is what makes this story feel like it matters beyond just a few early season results. The thing that should concern the rest of the Cup Series field, if the trend continues the way it has been going, is fairly straightforward. Everyone in NASCAR already knows what Shane Van Gisbergen can do when the race goes to a road course. His performances on those tracks have been among the most dominant the sport has seen in recent years. He arrived in the Cup Series essentially owning that part of the schedule. But if he is now becoming genuinely competitive on ovals as well, the calculus for everyone else changes dramatically. You can build a strategy around containing a road course specialist on the oval tracks and accepting that you will give up ground when the schedule turns technical. You cannot do that with a driver who is dangerous everywhere. That is the larger story sitting underneath both of these moments. It is not really about one comeback at Phoenix or one strong finish at Atlanta. It is about a driver who arrived in the Cup Series with a specific reputation and specific limitations, and who is working methodically to close the gap on those limitations faster than most people believed was possible this soon. The garage is noticing, the journalists are noticing, the other drivers are noticing. Whether the tougher oval tracks coming up in the weeks ahead confirm this trend or reveal that there is still significant ground to be made up remains to be seen. Las Vegas and Darlington will be instructive. But what we have seen through the first 4 races of 2026 is enough to say clearly that the question of whether Shane Van Gisbergen can compete on ovals is no longer as open as it was. The answer is starting to emerge, and so far it is an answer that the rest of the Cup Series field probably did not want to see this early in the year. Now we want to hear from you. Do you think Van Gisbergen can maintain this kind of oval performance as the schedule gets tougher? Or do you think Las Vegas and Darlington are going to expose limitations that the early results have been hiding? Leave your thoughts in the comments, because this is exactly the kind of debate that NASCAR fans love having, and there are no wrong answers this early in the season. And if you are not already subscribed to NASCAR Nation Report, please take a moment to do that now. We are a brand new channel working toward our first 1,000 subscribers, and every one of them is a real NASCAR fan who loves this sport the way we do. If you want honest weekly conversation about what is actually happening in the Cup Series garage, you are in the right place. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.